It is time for the independents to become unbridled, unrestrained, more spiritual. This is the Independence After Hours, and thank you very much for joining us on your different device. We're no longer on Fox Business Network. Now we're on the interweb. Good to have you here. Matt Welch, Camille Foster, Michael Moynihan, and Gavin McInnes are here to mainline information and opinion right to your body. So, gentlemen, what's still burning in your loins?
I'm sorry, what now?
Gonorrhea.
Why does it hurt when I pee? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
We're on the internet, I can say that, right?
Yeah. What is it? Is it Vladimir Putin? Is it Ukraine?
Well, no, I'm still burning in my midsection about the good people of Venezuela and the oppressive scumbag dictatorship that is ruining their lives. And it is being totally overshadowed, in some ways rightfully so, by the story in Ukraine and other places. But
what's happening? What's the latest?
You look at the streets today, there were, end to end in Caracas, full of student protesters. Ban Ki-moon, who is apparently somebody who works for the UN.
Former UN Secretary General.
Yes. He intervened and said, you guys really, to Maduro, he said, you should really listen to these student protesters. And Maduro's response was something about Yankee imperialists and the rest of it. So it's the exact same thing is happening. Fewer deaths now, but it's a bad situation for
the problem with it,
Venezuela.
too, is you see these mobs and you go, oh, my God, yet another riot going on there. And then they say, no, we're lining up for food.
Yeah, that's usually what brought these people to the streets.
Yeah.
Has the largest proven oil reserves in the world and can't keep rice on the shelves. So that's what the command and control economy does.
And what's-his-face is still in jail, right?
Leopoldo Lopez is still in jail, unfortunately. And nobody has really said two words about this. And shockingly, if you look at my Twitter feed, in the sociopaths that I interact with every day, some of whom have been on your show, by the way.
We got to get that.
We got to get that nutcase onto the show with me and
yeah.
him.
Why won't you guys appear at the same time?
I said I would appear with him. And,
we're talking about communist
Jesse Meyerson. So when we have our segment,
Yeah.
Ask a Communist, it's when we're talking to Jesse Meyerson, who refers to Leopoldo Lopez as an oligarchic tyrant, I believe.
Like a fascist oligarch. It's all meaningless, dribble from half-wits like him. These are people who know nothing about Venezuela. He knows, it's just the instinctual thing to defend somebody who puts, the socialist
How do you defend
Bolivar.
Maduro, though? I don't understand.
It's a really good question.
People are suffering. Crime is high. Prices are high. People can't afford their basic needs.
The response is usually the "what about" response. The old Soviet Union response. Well, what about what America did here? What about this, that, and the other? And it's always deflection. Nobody can actually answer why a country of 29 million people had 24,000 murders last year. We're a country of 320 million. We had about 14,000. Venezuela is beating us, outpacing us by 10,000 murders with, a tenth of the population. How is that happening? Well, I don't know. The Yankees and the fascists. It's unbelievable the sort of twisted pretzel that people can get themselves into to excuse something because they put the word socialist in the title.
I have been a little bit irritated this week with the whataboutism of talking about Ukraine and Russia. It's apparently a very fresh insight, when talking about what Vladimir Putin is doing, of saying that, but America did this, but America did that.
What is the name of that fallacy?
It is, they used to call it whataboutism.
But I thought Venezuela was the end of that whole excuse-making that you say, communism sucks, look what's going on with Russia, and then they go, well, I'm not really a communist, I'm more a socialist. Okay, fine, Venezuela sucks.
Yeah.
Well, aren't we done yet?
No, this thing has been going on.
No, they all say, but Sweden's great. Bernie Sanders will say that. He'll say, yeah, I'm a communist because Sweden's awesome.
And socialism is...
Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, does Bernie Sanders realize that Sweden has a lower corporate tax rate than the United States does? That it has privatized, main hospitals, school systems, the subway system is privatized in Sweden. The idea that Sweden, by the way, is a socialist paradise, it has gone from a sclerotic economy under long-term social democratic rule to changes in the early 90s when they had a quote-unquote conservative government. And all of this growth happened after they started sort of kind of dissembling a little bit on and taking bits out of the welfare state and privatizing.
Yeah, the socialism has been the worst thing about that country.
There's a lot of things I can point about.
We're talking earlier this week. I mean, the reality is that there are plenty of conflicts going on around the globe. There are places like Syria, which is still particularly hot. Sudan still kind of stinks.
South Sudan.
Sucks to live in Congo. Well, in general. But I wonder what it is that makes one conflict garner all of this attention and another not. I understand that we have some history with Russia, but when it comes to actual U.S. interest, I don't know what U.S. interest we have in the Ukraine.
I think it's the worry that people have a very short memory of the Cold War. It was really only a generation ago that we all pretty much assumed we were going to die because we had so many missiles pointed at one another. And when you reignite those feelings and those fears, they run very deep with a lot of people.
But are there any tangible U.S. interest in Ukraine at this point?
I think there's a tangible interest, broadly speaking, in the international community to have it not be okay for a large country with nuclear weapons to say to its neighboring crappy little country over here, we're going to send all of our troops in here and kind of hive the country in half. That was a principle under which the international community was mobilized against Saddam Hussein swallowing up Kuwait back then. That principle of you can't violate that sovereignty has since been eroded because the United States, among other countries, have violated other people's sovereignty for a variety of reasons. But it's still an important principle. You shouldn't be able to swallow your neighbor.
Yeah, but I don't think that's why it's popular. I think it's popular because it's palatable. I would rather hear about a conflict way the hell over there than hear about the Middle East, because Americans find Middle East news scary. When they see a woman buried up to her neck getting stoned, it's way too horrific. And wars in Africa, people don't want that on their TV. They don't want gays in Uganda being burned alive. They don't want albinos having their arms cut off.
People didn't want famine in Africa.
It's an expectation thing, too. I mean, we expect the fact that, countries like Central African Republic and Congo are going to be roiling genocides at all times.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's right is a different story, but there's an expectation that that's happening okay.
But you can't broadcast
Ukraine
that
is a little different. Venezuela is not getting a lot of attention because, it's a Caudillo, it's a Latin America. This happens all the time. There are coups. So, I mean, Ukraine as a sort of semi-Western and, of course, split between the East and the West, in a functional democracy, a lot of people have even been to
It's Rocky IV for people all over again.
But there are Western countries embroiled in those conflicts as well. I mean, France has a presence in some of the Congolese conflicts that are taking place now at this point. So it's interesting. I just wonder.
I think that the good thing for me, the interesting thing for me in Ukraine is to watch the ratbags come out and make excuses for a sort of, puffed up, imperialist power, and that's Russia. So we have a lot of anti-war activists who are legitimately anti-war. Then we have anti-war activists who are not anti-war; they're just on the other side, and they're making excuses for Vladimir Putin and making excuses for Russian.
But that's the strangest thing.
I saw anti-imperialist for Putin is a great.
I saw something today. There is an unsigned editorial which everyone should read and vomit onto their computer screens when they do. In The Nation today, defending Russia's actions, it said this, and this is I'm sort of paraphrasing, but this is actually what it said. What would the United States think?
Oh, no.
This is true. If that Russia started arming Mexico, wouldn't they take action? I'm sorry, but this is the same Nation magazine that opposed American action in Cuba and in Nicaragua when the Russians were doing just that.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, this is the short memory of these people and the idea that they're opposed to war and opposed to expansionism, and they're entirely fine if Vladimir Putin does it because he is, on the other side.
I like how many times has Stephen Cohen, who's married to...
But that's the exact same thing they criticize the United States for because of our involvement in Afghanistan.
Sure.
It's like arming the...
Mujahideen,
completely incoherent.
And then fighting them.
Yeah. No, to watch the kind of this kind of kabuki dance of pretending that you're opposed to kind of expansionist policy of any government and realizing that you just don't like it when the U.S. does it. And I think that's fine to not like it when the U.S. does it. And I encourage that. But be consistent about it. And there's a lot of inconsistency.
Is it impossible to be consistent in this postmodernist?
Yes, but
it really lacks hegemony.
Look, it's absolutely possible to be consistent, but you have to give up this charade that you're doing it because you are opposed to imperialism. Because I see all these anti-imperialist types like The Nation magazine making excuses for Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a guy who's invaded Georgia. They'll say, well, no, the Georgians invaded Russia, invading parts of Ukraine, unbelievable.
Beating and imprisoning gay people.
Yes, beating and imprisoning, shutting down the free media. I mean, it's amazing what lengths people will go to make excuses for that regime.
Although Billy Bragg stepped up and criticized.
He did, and I was
shocked.
I found it on Twitter.
Wasn't Woody Guthrie not against the Nazis until they started killing Jews?
He was not against. He was effectively pro-Nazi during the Soviet Russia pact, and then when the Soviets invaded when the Nazis invaded the Soviet Union, lots of people like Pete Seeger and Woody Guthrie said, "Oh, we're anti-Nazi again." So,
but at least you got to hand it to paleo-conservatives and libertarians. They're very consistent. Buchanan's always said this is a republic, not an empire. He doesn't want any intervention anywhere.
Yeah.
Let's just close the borders and leave them to it.
But he's a bit of a Russophile.
He's a bit of a Russophile these days,
Putinophile. Like he's going to defend, Christian honor in this fallen world, which is nonsensical.
But he still doesn't want it to be any of America's business.
Yes.
Well, he's consistent about that.
He's consistent about that.
And he's inconsistently
He hates them as he mutters under his breath.
Consistently homophobic.
He mutters under his breath and hates them, but still doesn't want us to send him
He does a
guns
hand
or
chop
butter.
when he talks. He's
He's a total hand chopper.
Vladimir Putin.
He's like the robot. How you doing, Mom? Pat Buchanan. And I'm going to open a Buchanan of whoop ass. I'm the Putin.
Oh, God. Thank God this is on the internet.
That was really good.
I like that.
Thank God they can't see this on the censored internet in Russia.
I've ever heard Macklemore do. Really. It was. It was. And I'll keep taking shots.
Don't make me start with the Chinese separatists, okay?
Oh, no. I don't know who Macklemore is.
Exactly.
That's good.
You know what? This is a wonderful time to wrap up the after show, Independence After Hours. Gavin, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
It has been wonderfully delightful having you in studio. Michael Moynihan, I know you made it together already.
You look like a hot young Mr. Burns.
You're so Pat Buchanan.
You should write a book of backhanded compliments.
That's not even backhanded. That's an insult.
No, Mr. Burns could have been hot when he was
said hot
30.
and young.
That's what he said. He did say hot and young.
He comes from good stuff.
Yeah, I think you're talking about Ed Burns.
Hot and young.
No,
It's like earlier he told me I look like a thin living Nell Carter.
Oh, wow. I was going to say Delta Burke, but, what? Well, he can say no. Anyway.
Nell Carter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to back you up.
Give me a break.
Yeah, give me a break.
Like, she had a lot in common with John Stossel.
Yeah. Oh, if she was alive, she'd be a great guest.
Well, God rest her soul in heaven. All right, thank you all. Little angels, each and every one of you. And we will see you tomorrow night. It's going to be a big show. PJ O'Rourke, Michael Ian Black, Jim Norton, only on the Independence at Independence FBN. Tweet us now. Goodbye.